I've spoken to many people involved with both visual and special effects on the classic series of Doctor Who, but I'm joined now by perhaps the definitive voice of special effects on the new series of the show. So I'd like to introduce special effects supervisor Danny Hargreaves. How are you?
Good, mate. How are you? Good to see you.
Thanks. In wonderfully exciting office with all sorts around you. How are things at the moment?
It's strange, isn't it? Isn't it a strange time? I'm being upbeat and positive because ultimately we know the industry is going to go back to normal. But we don't. When I say normal, it's going to be different to what we're used to. But I'm taking the time. I'm normally 150 miles an hour, so to go down straight to 10 miles an hour, it's quite a difference for me. So I'm using the time to spend some time with my family, to see some friends, get drunk, I'm not going to lie. And in addition to that, somewhere in between there, I've just purchased a new warehouse. So we have been moving into my new facility, which is really, really exciting. So it's been a labour of my love for the last sort of nine weeks or so, but I've had somewhere to escape to. So I think some of the husbands and partners have been escaping to the shed at the bottom of the garden. I've got this amazing warehouse, which is super cool. So yeah, I'd love you to come and see it sometime, mate.
Well, I still think you have probably the coolest job out of anybody.
Shh, don't tell anyone, otherwise we're all going to want to do it, you know.
But I wanted to take you back to perhaps the early days when you were a technician rather than a supervisor, particularly on Doctor Who. When you first worked on the show, was there quite a buzz around the set? Because I imagine it was sort of pushing new boundaries in some of the things it was asking to do.
It was so exciting. I got the call to go down. I wasn't part of the initial team in the first few weeks, and I was so gutted. I was like, oh, I really want to go and work on it. And then I got the call, and my first day on set was the Autons doing the smash out of the glass in the middle of Cardiff. And it was a night shoot, and we were doing this sequence where the Autons are smashing out, and my job was to break the glass. So what that means is I put an explosive charge on the glass the moment they smash through, you know, like this. And it was really funny because I think we were filming on a Friday and Saturday night, or one of the two, and there was loads of drunk revelers wandering the streets. And there, inevitably, at that time, there wasn't much filming going on in Cardiff, not like it does now. So it was quite unusual to see a camera team as big as that one on the streets of Cardiff. And everyone stopped, oh, you know, what are you filming? What are you filming? And everyone go, brutally honest, not that we would be now, but we'd say, oh, we're filming Doctor Who. And everyone would go, shut up, Doctor Who's not, you know, we're not, it's not on our screens, like you're joking. And it was just, it was quite funny. And I think when we filmed that, we were filming, I'm actually in that sequence actually, when the Autons are smashing out. I was in a taxi when it crashes into the side of the bus. So it was just a bit mental, and I loved it. It was really great. And I just remember at the time thinking, this is going to be quite cool, you know. And those early days with Christopher Eccleston, again, you know, such a great actor, and Billie Piper. I mean, Billie, I was thinking about this before we started this conversation, because I saw Billie in the papers today. She's starting a new TV show, and she looks great. And I thought, what a perfect fit she was for that first season. And it was great fun. Great fun with Russell at the helm. What I mean, can you imagine what that was like, you know?
Yeah, it certainly seems that it was the right place, the right time, with all the right people involved. But would this have been early sort of technician work for yourself, or were you fairly established by this point?
No, not at all. I was like the third man. I was not part of that kind of initial team. I went down there and did bit parts. And it was one of those things, you know, I was living in London, and going to Cardiff for a few days was a bit of fun. You know, we just knew that we'd be going down there, we'd be going out into Cardiff for a few drinks. So it was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, I'll go. That sounds fun, you know. And so I would only really go maybe once a week or a few times. So I'd be traveling from London. And so I was very much the technician. And and really my progression to becoming the supervisor was that of a gradual one, where opportunity came my way, and other people that were senior to me went and had opportunity elsewhere, and I was sort of given this task at a very early age into my career. Like I think I was only 24 years old, 23, 24 years, and I found myself running the show. So it was quite a show. I mean, it was a dream. Can you imagine, like, for a special effects guy working on Doctor Who, where I don't have a lot of people working with me, but at the time, you know, we'll be doing Victorian London, we'll be doing spaceships, Slovenes blowing up, Daleks blowing up, and that's only in the first half of the season. So it was fun. It was really fun. Cardiff is a fun town, and also the crew at the time were, I mean, they still are incredibly brilliant, but they were so helpful. I think when I noticed that from working on some shows in London where it's pretty aggressive working on set, and then coming to Wales, it was just really friendly, and with that in mind, you know, as we quickly fast forward, and I'm sure I'll talk about more about my how we got there, but essentially I live here now, and I call it my home, and I love living here. You know, there's some fantastic people, and I wouldn't go back to London. Imagine that, front page news, boom. No, I'm not going back.
So I suppose a staple part of Doctor Who is blowing up power stations, high streets, you know, all sorts of locations. Have you found that as filming is more of a regular thing in Cardiff, you can perhaps do more bigger setups than you would have done, you know, when you were a technician?
Yeah, I mean, it was not really done before. You know, I came to Cardiff initially before Doctor Who to do a show called Carrie's War, and fell in love with the town then. And but then when we came to do Doctor Who, we were doing Auton smashing the windows, as I mentioned earlier, and then we were doing tanks on St Mary Street. Then I was blowing up like the old post office for Torchwood, and then I would be doing stuff with Slovenes on Sarah Jane. So it was like there's no other show in the world that was doing this type of thing on a regular basis. And what people say to me is, you know, why Cardiff? But you see, what Cardiff gives you is so much in such a very small space. So in such a small area, sorry. So you've got urban, you've got countryside, you've got seaside, quarries, and everything's within 10 miles. So essentially, you've got quarries to do Mars, or, you know, so it's an incredibly rich place for filming. So you know, Puzzlewood as well, or Castle Cork up there as well. Fantastic location to be doing stuff, and so it was only. It was so obvious to see that Doctor Who wasn't going to be the only show that was going to be successful here in Wales. And I think when you look at obviously the other progression of shows like Sherlock and Sarah Jane and all of those amazing shows, you can see why, because everything is so friendly and so professional, but brilliant at filming as well. So, but yeah, when it came to those days of blowing up stuff in Ransom and Doctor Who, and Torchwood as well, Torchwood was lots of action. And so it was fun. It was, there was no other place like it. So yeah, they were great days.
And that first series, you know, people weren't aware that it was going to be the success it was. How had things changed by the second series? Was there more pressure on you? Was there a greater awareness that this was a success and would hopefully continue to be?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty special from I think, for me on a personal level, I think when I started watching sort of 3 or 4 episodes of the first season, you can see with all the creatures and the monsters and everything that it was like, okay, this is quite cool. You didn't really see much of that, I think, with the episodes 1 and 2, but I think when we went into later on in the season, there was nothing else on TV that was like it. It was pretty obvious it was going to be successful. Russell T Davies writing, Phil Collinson producing. I was a winning formula. David Tennant as Doctor, you know, moving into season 2. Billy Piper, David Tennant. I mean, come on, what a group, you know. So made my life incredibly fun and great to go to set. You know, I really enjoyed those days. I was becoming more involved in the show in those days. There were still people that are senior to me in the company that I worked for at the time. I didn't really start putting my creative stamp on the show until probably season 3 or 4. And then obviously the progression then went into when I took over from my own business, my own company with Matt Smith. But those sort of David Tennant years with Billy, sort of season 3 and 4, I think were really my sort of, I was cutting my teeth in the industry, really.
Because I imagine you had a good idea of what the show asks of you from a special effects point of view. So by the time you come to supervise, even if it's not as real effects, you must have had, that must have been very helpful starting position, because you knew what the limitations were of the budget and also what they asked for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I was very still early on in my career, so I was super keen to please. I was, as I said, 24 to 27 at that point. So I was very early on. I was the youngest supervisor in the country at that point. You know, there was no one else really sort of running the floor that young on such a big show. So for me, it was a real sort of learning curve. But what that came from was just sorry, my phone, so unprofessional. Turn down. What that came from was just an eager to please. But it was just, I just wanted to sort of do the best I can. I mean, I still do incredibly, I still try and do my best thing. But I think in those early days where I was literally doing my best every day, but I was skipping to work, man. It was super cool. It was super fun. I mean, who gets to do this, blowing slime at people and stuff like that. But Doctor Who was a beast. Torchwood was fun, Torchwood was fun. And people say, what's the difference between Doctor Who and Torchwood? Well, blood and sex, basically. Not together, obviously, but the comparisons between Torchwood, I could really push the limits with blood and guts and goo, and also there seemed to be a real competition between the two shows. You had different producers for both shows, and there seemed to be, I used to get in the ear, so what are Doctor Who doing? And what can we do on Torchwood that Doctor Who aren't doing? And then Doctor Who would be like, so what are Torchwood doing? And I'll be like, I'm not telling you, leave me alone. So it was always that. And then Sarah Jane Adventures would then come in and go, okay, we want to do something that no one else has done. I'm like, oh my God, give me a break. What can I do? So some of those creative times was trying to find new ways of doing stuff. And when I look back at it and look back at some previous videos, I always, it just gives me really fond memories.
And so across the 3 shows, you had some similar people, obviously people like running effects, some of the similar stunt coordinators. Did having an existing relationship with these people mean that you could experiment in ways that perhaps you wouldn't be able to if you were coming to it afresh?
Oh, 100%. Because I was given the sort of torch from Doctor Who, Torchwood and they were basically just like, right, this is what we want, crack on. And so I was from those early days given the free rein to sort of come up with those ideas and do my best to try and sort of, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of times I read the scripts and gone, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Oh God. And that is the comparative difference between working on these shows and then working on something like a Marvel film, is that the audience is the same. Okay, so as I'm sure you do, Alex, I'm sure you like watching Marvel, DC stuff, and even my children, that they watched Doctor Who from a very young age, and they also watch those films, but they all command the same level of effects and ideas. So what I was really, I tried my best to make sure that it wasn't naff, you know. And I fought tooth and nail with certain departments to say, I'll do that practically, and oh no, we'll do it. No, I'm like, no. And it was always a great spar, you know. It was a great boxing match between me and other departments. But we cannot, as a production, create something that looked naff, that the audience goes off to watch $100 million movie and then watches Doctor Who, and everyone goes, oh, it's a bit naff, isn't it? No, we cannot do that. And so that was my role, was just to ensure that there was a clear line between the two, and it was the same line, you know. I haven't got the budget for that, but it was important for me to make sure that I try and get my best to that sort of level, you know. So practically, that, you know, so when it came to the explosions, I took a lot from the Westgate Street explosion for Torchwood, when she walks into the building and it blows up, was a complete rip-off of the Children of Men explosion in the middle of London. So I took that idea and I wanted it to look as brutal as that, and I still watch that, and it makes the hairs on my arms stand up when I watch that in Children of Men. And I tried to copy it as best I can, basically, at the time and the money I had. So yeah, that was it. So I took ideas from films, because I'm a massive movie nut. I mean, look at me. I've got Back to the Future. I've got Mandalorian stuff here, you know. I mean, can I do this? Look at this dude. He's watching in. Here he is. He's making sure that I say the right thing. If I say anything wrong, I'm in trouble, you know. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So hang on. Let's do that. Let's have a bit more. So he's watching. In fact, I should just say this one here. He's the main 50th Dalek, actually, from the 50th episode. So he was the guy coming in with all the explosions going off around him. And if you actually look on his head, do you say head? I don't even know. His top half, yeah. He's signed by all the doctors in the 50th anniversary. So everyone from Tom Baker to David Tennant to everyone. So he's super valuable. So he's watching in, so I have to be careful. So I took a lot from feature films and try and sort of, and that was my challenge to myself, to try and sort of emulate those, try and copy them. I wasn't, it was more of a kind of respect thing that I was trying my best to, because I was so incredibly, shall we say, excuse the pun, blown away by them.
But, you know, particularly in those early days, you were part of the team that brought back the Daleks, the Cybermen, so many iconic monsters, and are given the pressure of making them look fantastic on screen, and particularly Cybermen bursting through windows and all sorts. The pressure to get that right must have been immense. Yeah.
Funny stories about those Cybermen. That night we were working up at this beautiful old house, which we featured a few times on various shows. And at great expense, we'd taken the windows out. And I still don't even think to the day that the owner knew we were going to do that. But anyway, we took all the windows out. And all of the glass, we only had one set for every window. So if any of it broke putting in, we'd have one of the rooms was, or one of the windows wouldn't have glass in, but we managed to get them all in. And if you remember, when they arrived for the first time, they emerged through smoke. That wasn't me. It was real Atmos. It was actually a really foggy night, and it looked amazing. So I've claimed that one. So it's even in my show reel. But there we go. Don't tell anyone.
Because it's worth saying, you know, it's not just explosions and, you know, soft pops and things. It's also Atmos, which is a mainstay of special effects work.
Yeah, I mean, look, my job role is not just explosions and fire effects. My role is a special effects supervisor, physical special effects for film and television or events. So essentially my role is anything that covers from, obviously, explosions, bullet hits, but also atmospheric effects. So wind, snow, rain, fire. And then engineering. So I'm a mechanical electrical engineer. So I studied at college and I've done a national certificate in engineering. So I do mechanical rigs as well. So collapsing sets or cars that fly, you know, those type of things. So we cover everything, and we have a skill base in many different disciplines, from plumbing to electrics to pneumatics to oh my god, cars, engines, everything. We generally, us as special effects people, have a good understanding of how things work. Okay, so but a lot of the time and particularly Doctor Who, there isn't a instruction manual on how to do certain things. Okay, so one of the funny things is salesmen. Okay, so if you're standing on set and you've built a rig and you're going to put an actor on it, this rig has never been made before, this stunt's never been done before, and I've got to sell it to the actor that she's going to be absolutely fine, it's going to be brilliant, there's going to be 1,000 questions from the director. What does it do? Does it do this? Does it do that? And you're going, yeah, of course it does this, it does that. It's never done it before. So, but you see, of course, everything we make is tested and it's safe. But then you put it onto a film set, and then everything's very different. You know, I remember when I think back to when I worked on Sherlock, and I made the room tip, and we were testing it, and it was fabulous. It was good. It was difficult, but for a special effects guy to test it, he was trying to do the walk, but then Benedict, who is obviously a trained actor, who's brilliant, comes in and he does this wonderful dance up the walls and stuff. Can you imagine if I tried to do that? No. But that's what makes so great, is that we'll make the mechanical system, and then you bring someone creative like Ben in, and you put them together, and you get a really amazing sequence. And that was the same for Doctor Who. Like, I would make something, or I'd get a problem on a Friday and it's got to be ready for Monday. And I'll be like, right, okay, I'll make this little rig, I'll test it, and that's all cool. I'll give it to David Tennant, and David Tennant will go, okay, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do this, yeah, and and like this. I'll give it to Matt Smith, and he'll go. He would have broken it. So I'm joking, Matt, but yeah, Matt broke a lot of props, you know. So different actors, different doctors had different interpretations on how to do things, and it was lovely. It was lovely to watch, you know. And I think I've been very fortunate to have worked on every episode of Doctor Who, and I've worked with every doctor, and it is fantastic to watch people's craft and how they do their own interpretation of the Doctor. You know, I'm just lucky, really lucky to watch it, and it's been fun. It's been really good.
And go back to Matt Smith's time on the show. One of the challenges was to flood a set as a submarine. I mean, that obviously has been done in other shows, but not in Doctor Who. That must have been quite a challenge. Yeah,
it was. Very small set. I think Douglas McKinnon directed that, didn't he? That was the Ice Warrior. Is that right? Yeah. Good. Seeing good. Getting good. I'm really genuinely bad. So just remember that. Yeah, that was a fun episode. I wanted to put it on a rig that made the whole set move, but obviously we couldn't afford it. So a lot of that is camera shakes. We built a lot of the set in a tank, so I was able to fire water in. But if you think creatively, first of all, like what it looks like, we want water to come in, and we want to do this, we want to flood this, and all of that. You think, okay, but then practically, how am I going to do that? Okay, practically, I'm going to do this. I need to get this. Okay, how am I going to do that safely? So then I'll think about that safely and how I'm going to do that. I need to liaise with certain departments, and then, you know, then the final thing is, you know, put it all together and then do it on set in the time frame, which is ridiculous. You know, we don't have a lot of time to do this. You know, we shot that episode in 4 or 5 weeks, and some of the sequences we came up with that morning, and a lot of stuff we rigged the night before. So, you know, to try and process this and put it all together in such a short space of time is the challenge, you know. So, but then I love that challenge, you know. I think if you gave me too much time, I'd change it a million times. So I kind of like putting it together just before we film.
And with any sequence or setup, you know, you read it in the script. Where does your process then go from there? Do you sort of work out how you could do it and then go to a director, or how does that process begin?
Well, it's it's a relatively short process. I'll tell you, I haven't got any scripts here actually. I don't think. No, I haven't got one. Well, normally, what's this? No, normally I've got a few lying around, but essentially I read the script. Excuse me. Read the script, and on that will give you a really good idea of where we're going in the world, the universe, what planet we're going to. Is it contemporary? Is it period? Whenever you go period, your mind thinks, okay, well, is that sort of braziers, flambeaux, atmos, Victorian days, wet downs in terms of wetting the floors down. You know, there's that kind of thing. You think, okay, if it's a space station, you think to yourself, okay, that's going to be a set that's probably got a lot of steel. We'll have lots of steam rising and stuff like that. If it's a Mars or a planetscape in a quarry, it might be burning pockets of flame, it might be heavy atmos, we might even want to put some type of snow down. So these are all the things that I can try and gauge even before I've even read gone into the dialogue or what's going on. So as soon as it says space station, blah, 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 you can think, okay, cool. And then I'll read the script, and then we have a thing called a tone meeting. And I'm sure that you would have discussed this with many other departments in your conversations, I'm sure, about tone meetings. The Russell T Davies tone meetings were legendary. They were a joy. They were great fun. We'd sit down for a few hours, and Russell would outline what he'd want to see. And they were fun, you know. You used to roll out of those production meetings belly laughing because, you know, the energy and the excitement. You just wanted to do your best, you know. And so I used to look forward to them. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of them went on for a few hours, but creatively it was an opportunity to get all the heads of department together, and then we would talk about the look, the feel, the pace, maybe even some of the actors that are involved. And then I would go away, and we still do it now. You know, we sit down on creative chat when we talk about series that we've just done as well. It's all part of that process. I would go away, talk to relevant people. I might have a separate conversation with the director based on that, and then but really key in how we want to do the stunts and special effects. Once we've done that, I'd start going on a recce. So a recce would be to look at the location, if it's possible to do what we want to do. I would then cost it. This is where the really tricky bit happens. I've got to put figures to how we're going to do it. And let me tell you, in those early days, I lost so much money because I would say, oh, we're going to do it for this much. And they'd say, oh, we can't afford it. And I'd be like, okay, I'll do it for that much. Okay. And then on the day, I'd still make it bigger because I just wanted it to look cool. You know, so many times they were only paying for a third of the effect, but I would literally put everything into it because I loved it, you know. But anyway, so yeah, I would then conversation about that, and then obviously we turn up on set. We test everything at the workshop first, and then we would bring it to set. But the process relatively would take about a week to 2 weeks, like not very long. And a lot of the time when we were halfway through a season, I would be filming 1 episode, 2 episodes, and then having to duck off set to go on a recce and then come back to. So we were never stopping and then going to do prep and then film. We were constantly filming all the time. So in those days, it was really hard to figure out where I could split my time. And I always chose set because that was for me, that was my favorite. But financially, my head was like, you need to go to these recce's because you need to know what's going on in the next block, you know. So yeah, the whole process, it took relatively a quick time. And the turnaround time of that is relatively quickly as well. So a lot of the time we might even be recceing on the Friday and start filming on the Monday. So you wouldn't really get a lot of time. So as I said before, too much time and I overthink stuff. So it wasn't too bad, but it was quite hard.
And there must be that temptation that, you know, obviously every episode of Doctor Who is event television, but those Christmas specials, the 50th, New Year's Day specials, is there a temptation to make them that little bit bigger and
100%. there's no temptation. You have to. Okay, so you cannot go into another episode and go, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to make it as big as that last year. You can't do that. So every time that you do something, you have to go bigger. You have to go harder, and the budget always doesn't quite follow you. And but the 50th for me was one of the most exciting. And given that opportunity to really go full on with obviously 3D filming, which has never been done before.
So just how big was the 50th from your point of view?
We'd done a few sort of big Christmas specials before that, but the hype around it was really exciting. New people were coming into the production who were specialists in their fields in terms of like cameras and stuff. And then the scale of it was just super, super exciting. And I think if, you said to me, Danny, what's your favourite episode? And it was the 50th anniversary, The sequence where we blew up Arcadia, again, was one of my favourite sequences to shoot. We did all of that sequence in a night and a half. That's where this bad boy comes from. Here he is. We're talking about you, all right? It was fantastic. It was a fantastic thing to do. I remember suspending the Doctor and obviously Jenna Coleman in the police box in Trafalgar Square. Sorry. I mean, look, this is Doctor Who. Like, we're doing that in the middle of central London. Like, that's crazy. And it was great fun. And do you know what the best thing about that, Alex, is the fact that when we finished filming, I got the privilege of watching that episode with 3,500 fans at the 50th celebration. Now, what was incredible was I was doing one of these stage things where I was on stage talking about how we do our stuff. I was doing some practical stuff. And they had the 50th anniversary episodes screened. And I, as I said, sat there. And it was so good. It was so good. Because, when would you, sit down with 3,000 people and watch an episode? I mean, I know you've been to a lot of these conventions. I personally not, but because it was so big, and it was silent. No one was going to the toilet. No one was coughing. No one was eating popcorn. No one was talking. Everyone was just like this. And one of the biggest moments, again, the Arcadia thing was cool, but one of the funniest things was the gasp from when we revealed Peter Capaldi's eyes. Do you remember that bit when he was coming to rescue the Doctor, and you saw his eyes? And because obviously everyone was excited about him then taking the role on from Matt. And it was a huge cheer, and it was wonderful. And I think that whole process from talking about it, filming it, and then recovering from it, and then obviously watching it with so many fans was fantastic. It was a great time.
So having done something like that, for which you received all sorts of awards, how does it compare to other productions? Are they then going, well, we've seen that, we want you to do that, but bigger?
No, not really. I mean, yeah. I mean, yes, no. I mean, no one really watches something and goes, "I want that, but bigger." I mean, they know I did it, and that's great. Everyone has their own idea about what they want to do, and as I said, Torchwood were very much sort of we want to go bigger and better, which I loved. So I think particularly when we shot the Miracle Day series with obviously Russell as the producer and writer, when he brought that show from America back to Wales, and that was a really great, brilliant thing. And he was fun. He was really fun because he was so proud that he was presenting his Welsh crew to his US crew, and it was nice because we were working with a US crew. And there were some great effects in there. I love to do. I blew up the house down on what's it, Three Cliff Bay or something? No, Rasili Bay, isn't it? Remember that one? So that lovely house, which is the only house on the beach where you can't hire because it's hired 5 years in advance. Well, I had to blow it up, but obviously not damage it. So we had a helicopter flying in front of the building. It fires a missile, it blows up. Obviously, I could not scratch that building. And that was just such a complicated sequence to put together. And then obviously I got the chance at the end of the season to blow up that hangar at the end. Again, that was slightly scratched afterwards, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, that was a little bit burnt. But funny thing about that is, as I was saying to you earlier, we paid, or the production were paying for a certain amount to blow it up, and time was running out, and I had enough to go twice on that explosion. But you see, I thought, well, I'm not going to take it all back with me. I'm just going to throw it all into the explosion. Why not? So that explosion where Eve Miles, she's on the bike and she's like doing this, and she rides away and it all explodes, was actually half, it's twice the size as it should have been, because I just didn't want to take everything home with me. So yeah, like I said, I always gave a little bit more than what was actually paid for. So yeah, that's actually one of my faves, that explosion. That's probably one of the biggest I've done. That was 500 and something litres of fuel. And, it was quite a tasty bang.
So the ambition of Doctor Who has increased year upon year, but how does it compare to other shows? Are they demanding in another way, perhaps?
The film industry is very different, in a very different place. Prior to COVID-19, the film industry has changed so much in the last 10 years. I've had my business, Real Effects, now for 10 years. I've been able to build my business based on my involvement with Doctor Who. So another reason why Doctor Who is such a massive part of my life is I've been able to create my business that I've wanted. So there's always this very special thing in my heart for the show. But moving forward, what's happened in the last 10 years is the development of hybrid shows. Now, hybrid shows are massive shows with big budgets, but we still shoot on the same schedule as a BBC drama. So say, for instance, Netflix, Amazon shows. These shows have come around now where there's huge production costs, such as, you have cranes, you've got your steady cams, you've got drones virtually every day. So the demand for filming has increased. So what that means is that the effects themselves have become sort of big. Whereas obviously back in the early days of Doctor Who, they were massive in terms of the scale at the time. What we were doing then is very much the norm now in terms of some of the big shows. So I'm obviously involved in many different, say, Netflix and Amazon shows. I left, I'm still with Doctor Who, but when Doctor Who finished filming, I would go on then to do, some of those, I'm sure I went on to do Sherlock, so I've done all of Sherlock. I went on then to do Da Vinci's Demons, which is filmed also down here in Wales. And then I went up then to do Outlander up in Scotland. So I ran Outlander for a couple of years up there. Aside from that, I was still doing other stuff, films. I went to do the Coronation Street tram crash, which was fun because my link there was with Phil Collinson, who was the producer on that for a while. So I went up there for a couple of months to shoot that sequence, which was incredible. It was great fun. Many different shows, lots of BBC shows went on to do. Recently I've done obviously Luther, and then really for the last 3 seasons I've been running Peaky Blinders, so obviously got my thing behind me. So again, that's another show which I have a huge creative input in it, in terms of me and my team. Aaron Glasser, who works with me on set, again, he has great input with what goes on. We have a great relationship with the producers and the directors that come on, and it's just such a cool show to work on, So you think to yourself that, I'm quite a cool guy and all this sort of stuff. You're not at all. Until you work on that show and you work with the actors on Peaky Blinders, they are cool, So they all turn up with their flat caps and long jackets, and all the girls are wincing, like, oh my God, there's, you know, they're super cool on set. You know, Killian is a great guy to work with. I worked with him on a production with Ben Wheatley, called Free Fire. Again, another great film to have worked on, with Brie Larson and who else was Michael Smiley, and it was what's his name? Oh my God, the American actor. It's going to my brain. Anyway, it was an incredible film to work with. Anyway, what I'm saying is that, you know, it was just it's when I worked with Killian, I progressed with him onto Peaky, and it's great. It's a great show. We were due to have started season 6, but unfortunately it's been put back. So it will come back, I promise. The storyline as it lays out for the new season, I'm not going to tell you, but it is super exciting, and it's a fantastic story. It's lots of twists and turns, and it will be, when we get a chance to film it, it will be really, really fantastic. But yeah, no, it's a great show to work on, and super, super cool.
And do you find that there is one particular show that you're asked about more than others? Because all the things you've done have such a following, even things like Good Omens, Sherlock, you know, so many iconic shows.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. I don't know how it happens. I think it's probably the people I work with. You know, Douglas McKinley, director. You know, I worked with him many, many years ago on London's Burning. I love that. You know, worked with him, and then he came on to Doctor Who, and he was a terror. He was horrible. I scared the life out of me, but I just wanted to do my best, and I earned my stripes. It's an expression I say when you sort of, he gives you a hard time because he's just making sure he gets the best. When you give him your best, he's a lifelong friend of mine now. So he's taken me on many productions. He took me on to Sherlock. He took me on to Silent Witness. He's taken me on to The Good Omens, and hopefully more stuff into the future. So these iconic productions, half the time you don't realise how big they are. Like when we started Sherlock, you know, we didn't know it was going to be anywhere as big as it is. So when I came onto Peaky, it had already been established, and when I got that call, I was like, I would definitely want to get involved. The Good Omens, again, no one really knew. Neil Gaiman, again, we know from working with other productions, but we never knew it was going to be as big as it was. So yeah, I've been very fortunate enough to have worked on some incredible TV shows. I've worked on some iconic films over my career. Some range from Star Wars to Sexy Beast, you know, from real sort of cult films to blockbuster films. And my goal is to continue where we are right now. I love where we are working at the moment in terms of our client base and the shows we work on. I want to continue that. Don't get me wrong, I would like the opportunity for my own business to really progress and work on some huge features, but they are very difficult to work on. You know, they command so much attention that it would mean that I would not be able to work on other productions if I was to work on these huge films. So I'm very nicely balanced in terms of working on Netflix, Amazon type productions, as well as still dipping my toe back in on Doctor Who and stuff like that, because I'd never want to sort of step away completely where you'd need to literally drag that show away from me. And if you gave it to someone else, I'd be devastated. So it's a selfish part of me that doesn't want to almost sort of, I still want to come back to working on Doctor Who. And the thing about Doctor Who, by no means, it's not a small show, you know, it's a massive show. But each one, if you do too many, you can't give the best you can. So I'm quite selective on what I like to get involved with. And it's just a really nice place to be professionally, you know. So, and I think I'm at the moment where we are working on His Dark Materials. We work together on that show. We know how big that show is. We know how attentive it is. So I kind of found the balance of where I can put myself between these shows. But it just means that I have to be everywhere all the time. I drive so many miles. and I don't really get much sleep at night, but it's the sacrifice I make to do what I do. So that's why I do it.
And yeah, clearly loves every minute of it. But had it always been the intention to go into special effects, and how did you find yourself there?
100%. Didn't want to do anything else in the world. Wasn't interested. It was never going to happen. It's funny. I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm going to show you something else as well. I don't know if you can see. Right. Look. Let me move out of the way. Can you see this thing here? Right. There's a little T2 box there. Can you see that? Right. I don't know if you can see. Right. There's a little Terminator 2 box set, VHS. Right. That is that very video box set is what I watched 30 years ago. I think it's their anniversary, 28 years ago, that came out. I watched that actual box set, which inspired me to get into special effects. That's why that box set is in that box set, because without watching that, I wouldn't have anything. So I was at home, and I lived in a village of in Oxfordshire, and I got very bored in the evenings, so we went, it was a village life, basically. It was quite difficult. So I used to lose myself in films. And then my dad brought me this back, and it's an 18, but I was like 13, I think, like we all do watch these films. And I watched Terminator 2, and it blew my mind. And for that reason, that's the sole reason as to why I got into film, because I watched that, and there was I couldn't do anything else. I didn't want to do anything else. But from a very early age of 13, 14, I knew I wanted to do special effects. There's a fantastic thing on that VHS, which is something that we're quite accustomed to now, which is a behind the scenes. Now, you've seen me do lots of behind the scenes things, but it's incredibly important to inspire the next generation of filmmakers, to give them an opportunity to see how things are done, because I really want to inspire people to get into my industry. And so when I watched that, there was behind the scenes where this guy's running around and he's blowing up this huge building because this helicopter's blowing it all up, and he had a little tool belt, and he was, I don't know who he was. I should do a bit more research. I'd love to meet the guy if he's still alive, but that single moment was my moment that I got inspired with filmmaking. So yeah, I put it in a case. It's a bit nuts, isn't it? But that's why I did it, because that single moment from watching that is what inspired me. So like I said, there was no going back. I went to the careers advisor and said, I want to be a pyrotechnician. The person looked at me and he was like, "You're crazy. You can do a course in environmental science or something." And I was like, "No, I'm not interested." So yeah, I kind of found the company, and I badgered them for many, many years to give me a job. They finally gave in, and my first days on set were, as I said earlier, London's Burning, Between the Lines, Thief Takers. Your mum and dad will know all those now. So, but the funny thing is, I was only 14 at the time, but I lied about my age. I said I was 16, so they would allow me to do work experience, but I was actually 14. So I don't condone that, guys. Please don't do that. But from 14, I pretended I was 16. So when I got to 16, they gave me a full-time job. So then I thought I was 18, but really I was 16. I moved to London when I was 17, and I was living on my own at 17. I was just nuts. I've got a 14-year-old son, and I can't ever see him doing that. So God knows, So yeah, it's been quite a path,
So who would have been some of the people you learned from at the time?
So I went and worked for another company in London called Any Effects. I worked with them. I met some incredible people, and I worked for them right up until I was given the opportunity at Doctor Who. So I went in there as a floor sweeper, and just a cocky little 14 to 16-year-old who didn't have any life skills, who was from the countryside, and then thrown into this sort of male working environment in West London where everyone's got a story to tell, and it was just it was quite a, I grew up quick, you know, and then going on to set at the age of, say, 16, 17, working on these shows. London's Burning particularly, it's so comparative to Doctor Who, because every week we would have something different. So one week we would have been setting fire to a cinema, and the next one would be blowing up a boat, and then the following one would be setting fire to a factory. So in terms of an apprenticeship to learn how to do fire and explosions, there was no other place in the world that was better. So that's how I quickly progressed to becoming a senior person at Doctor Who, or given the responsibility that I could run that show, was because I'd been involved in working in film since I was 16 years old, working on set since I was 18, and running the floor since I was 22, 24. So I had a very quick growing up period when I was on set, and I got to do some cool stuff. You know, I traveled the world. I worked on shows that ranged, as I said to you earlier, like from the prequels to Star Wars. Sorry, I'd worked on those. And then I went out to the Middle East and I worked on documentaries. I worked in North Africa, South Africa, and it was an incredible time. And so for me, it's been sort of a very long career, I'm 41 now, and I've been doing this since I was young. And so I'm 22, 3 years into my career. So I'm not over yet. I've still got some of my best years to come. So I'm looking to obviously still build this business over this next 10 years and maybe even beyond. So we'll see what my son or daughter do with it afterwards.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty more exciting things to come and stuff for us to look forward to. I'd just like to say, Danny, thank you very much for your time. It's been a real joy to take you back to some of your early days on Doctor Who, but also hear about some of the other things you've done. So thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for listening. And yeah, we hopefully will get back to filming Doctor Who again soon. So see you soon. And thanks so very much. Cheers, mate.